The story kicks off at a bustling port in Hong Kong, where massive cranes are tirelessly loading containers onto ships. Among these containers is one holding not just a mountain of cash, but also a man, Ivan Marque. Once the security checks were over, Ivan emerged from the container. The truth: this container had been shipped all the way from Spain to Hong Kong, carrying a whopping $2.5 million. As soon as the cash was verified, Ivan was set to receive his courier commission, a solid 3%, which amounted to an incredible $800,000. Now, let's rewind a bit. A few years ago, Ivan was just another guy standing outside a grand hotel, idolizing his father. He could never forget the day he and his dad took out a loan to open a wedding banquet hall. At first, the business thrived, money poured in, and the family was living the good life. But then came the economic crisis, and everything fell apart. The entire business crumbled under its weight. That was the day Ivan made a promise to himself: he would never live in poverty again. After the recession, his father would spend his days parked in front of the TV, endlessly complaining, blaming the government for every misfortune. This behavior began to irritate Ivan. He'd think to himself, "Come on, Dad, do something. All you ever do is criticize." During this time, Ivan started working as a valet. But unlike his daily job, his mind was constantly churning with business ideas. Unlike his father, Ivan believed in the system and was determined to play big while staying within its framework. One day, while hanging out with his friends, Ivan shared his business plan. The concept was simple: buy run-down apartments, renovate them to look brand new, and sell them at a hefty profit. However, his friends weren't impressed. To be fair, they didn't have the money to get started either. Ivan, undeterred, said, "So what? We'll get a loan from the bank." But instead of supporting him, they burst into laughter, mocking his idea. Later that day, during their valet shift, Ivan and his friends crossed paths with Mr. Larimer, a government minister who was visibly drunk. Seizing the opportunity, Ivan offered to drive him home, and Larimer, without hesitation, agreed. Ivan, however, had a different plan brewing in his head. While escorting Larimer, Ivan managed to get access to the minister's briefcase. When the chance presented itself, he opened it and was stunned. Inside was a pile of cash. Without overthinking, Ivan swiftly pocketed some of the bills. This impulsive decision would set him on a path he never expected. A little later, after dropping Larimer off at his home, Ivan went straight to the woman the politician worked for. Without beating around the bush, he said, "Look, this man is stealing money, and I can do a better job than him. Whatever your business is, trust me." To back up his claim, he admitted to taking some cash from Larimer's briefcase, proving he wasn't bluffing. Mary, the woman in charge, was impressed by Ivan's confidence. Without hesitation, she offered him a delivery job, worth €10,000. Ivan didn't think twice and agreed. The next day, he delivered a horse to a man named Francisco. It turned out Francisco had purchased the horse as a birthday gift for his daughter, Leticia. When Francisco inquired about Ivan's involvement, he simply smiled and said, "This is my first delivery for Mary." This marked the beginning of Ivan's entry into a world far more complex and dangerous than he had ever imagined. During their conversation, Ivan learned that Francisco was from the same town as him. They reminisced about the old days, and Francisco shared his story, how he started as an employee at a small photocopy shop, gradually built connections with influential people, and climbed his way to the top. Ivan's task was to deliver a briefcase full of cash from Francisco to Mary. But luck had no plans to stay on Ivan's side. On his way, the police stopped him. It didn't take long for them to open the briefcase, and their eyes lit up at the sight of so much cash. Panicking, Ivan lied, "I just sold my house. This money is from that sale." The police didn't buy his story. One of them, irritated, slammed Ivan's head against the car. Sensing the danger, Ivan composed himself and said confidently, "I know your boss. Want me to call him?" This caught the officers off guard, and they eventually let him go. Later, Ivan found out that this entire ordeal had been orchestrated by Mary. Those police officers were actually her men, and the entire setup was a test to gauge Ivan's loyalty. After successfully completing the delivery, Mary not only paid Ivan but also gave him a bonus so he could buy himself some sharp new clothes. As time passed, the relationship between Ivan and Mary grew closer. One day, Ivan met Mary's husband, Francis. Francis was the son of a prominent diamond smuggler and was deeply involved in the business of foreign currency trafficking. That day, Ivan was tasked with delivering for a Belgian courier. Ivan was thriving in his courier job. With each delivery, he began to enjoy the thrill of his work more and more, feeling like his life was finally back on track. Ivan's lifestyle had become glamorous. He was earning big money, driving luxury cars, and mingling with high-profile people, all part of his new daily routine. Meanwhile, Francisco, commonly known as Paco, was a master at laundering dirty money. His clients were wealthy and powerful, and Francis and Mary played a key role in assisting Paco in his operations. Paco entrusted Ivan with cash-filled briefcases, which Ivan had to transport to Belgium. One day, Ivan was chatting with Leticia when Paco spotted them. Paco was not pleased at all. He sternly warned Ivan, "Stay away from Leticia." Ivan nodded in agreement, but deep down, he was irked by the confrontation. A few days later, Ivan met Mary at a restaurant. During their conversation, Mary revealed that Belgium was no longer safe for their operations. The situation had worsened, so they had found a new partner in Geneva. As they talked, their attention was drawn to an odd-looking couple sitting nearby. Ivan joked, "How did this guy manage to snag such a gorgeous woman?" Mary smiled and replied, "With what's in his briefcase, anything is possible." Ivan was starting to piece together how this game worked, but his curiosity to learn more only deepened. Afterward, they headed to a high-rise building where they met Mr. Stull, Mary's business partner. Stull had developed an impressive system for laundering black money. His methods were highly professional, and he charged a 3% commission for his services. Later, while talking to his mother on the phone, Ivan noticed something intriguing on TV. The man he had seen at the restaurant with his stunning girlfriend was now on the news, but this time, alongside his wife. Ivan instantly realized the man was having an affair with the woman at the restaurant. For Ivan, this world and its characters had just become even more fascinating. He thought to himself, "If I want to survive in this game, I'll have to play my moves even smarter." This marked the beginning of the real game. Ivan devised a careful plan to install a hidden camera in Luis's room. To make it happen, he bribed a cleaner to help him out. However, fate had other plans. The restaurant's security officer, Yannick, caught Ivan red-handed in the act. Ivan's heart raced, anticipating the worst, but Yannick turned out to be a player himself. Smirking, he said, "All right, pal, but I want a cut of the profits." Yannick took the lead and installed the camera himself. Within no time, the footage they captured was more than enough to blackmail Luis. Ivan immediately recognized that Yannick could be the perfect partner for his schemes, a clever mind paired with physical strength. After the job was done, the two celebrated with a wild party, reveling in their victory. The next day, Ivan met with Mary and mentioned that his mother had been asking him to visit for a while. Mary, who valued relationships deeply, immediately said, "Don't stress about it. Take as much time off as you need. Family always comes first." She also gifted Ivan a luxury watch, adding, "A person's watch and shoes say everything about their personality." With their next plan in motion, Ivan and Yannick went to confront Luis. Wasting no time, they showed him the footage and laid it out clearly. "Look, you've got two options. Either report this to the police and ruin your reputation, or work with us." Luis didn't have much of a choice. Ivan and Yannick laid out their offer, help them transfer money from Spain to Switzerland and open a new branch in Luis's city. Reluctantly, Luis agreed, setting the stage for Ivan's next big move. Ivan wasn't just expanding his operations rapidly, he was also growing more powerful with each calculated step. Now, the stakes in Ivan's game were rising even higher. Luis, who had been reluctantly trapped in their scheme, eventually struck a deal. In exchange for deleting the incriminating video, Luis promised to introduce Ivan and Yannick to some of the big players in the underground network. At first, Ivan had no idea that every move he made was being closely monitored by a special police unit. This was the moment when Chief Inspector Roy started paying serious attention to Ivan's activities. Luis made sure Ivan became a trusted figure in his circle, allowing him to mingle with influential businessmen and power players. Ivan began to understand the intricacies of their shady dealings, steadily cementing his position in this dark and dangerous world. Some time later, Ivan met with Mary to share updates about his new business partners and ventures. Mary, however, was concerned that Francisco wouldn't take this news well. After all, Ivan and Yannick's new operation of laundering black money was essentially stepping on Francisco's turf. If they started cleaning dirty cash, it could cut into Francisco's income. But Ivan, with his trademark confidence, reassured her, saying, "The business is huge, there's enough money for everyone. And I promise I won't poach Paco's clients." Mary was somewhat calmed by Ivan's assurance, but she knew Paco didn't tolerate competition of any kind in this line of work. Later that night, Ivan asked Mary to stay over, but she declined, saying she'd be spending Christmas with her family. Ivan, too, headed to Madrid to visit his family. He arrived with an abundance of gifts, especially for his mother and sister. But his father's mood was sour. It was clear from his expression that he had suspicions about the source of Ivan's wealth. Van's father, in a fit of anger, said, "You're making all this money, but tell me, where is it all coming from?" Ivan tried to steer the conversation away, but his father wouldn't let it go. He warned him, The money came fast, but it'll go just as quickly. Ivan didn't respond, but his father's words echoed in his mind. Was he really on the right path, or was this game going to catch up with him someday? The suspicion and questions from his father only grew. When his father asked him more about his work, Ivan replied evasively, "I work in import-export with some big players." But that wasn't the end of it. His father's continued probing soon escalated into an argument. In frustration, Ivan stormed out of the house. Ivan went to meet some old friends and saw that they were doing exactly what he had once suggested to them: buying old flats, renovating them, and selling them for a profit. The change in their attitude and their blatant use of his idea bothered Ivan deep down, but he said nothing. As time passed, Ivan's business grew. The money started rolling in, his cars became more expensive, and his reputation spread. But soon, fate brought him face to face with Francisco and Leticia. Francisco, who had been upset with Ivan for a while, didn't like at all that Ivan was pulling his clients from his territory. "I warned you before, but you didn't listen," Francisco said angrily. When Ivan brushed off his words, Francisco sent his goons to teach Ivan and Yannick a lesson. Their goal was clear: to make Ivan understand that doing business in his area was not a game. But Ivan wasn't the type to run away in fear. He confronted Francisco head-on and said, "Look, I'm working in your area, right? Take 30% of the profits. I won't touch your clients, I promise." Francisco liked this offer. He thought, if money was coming in anyway, why start an enemy over it? The deal was struck between them. During this time, Ivan made a lot of money, but it went to his head. His attitude started to change. The grounded man he once was, now became arrogant and full of pride. When Mary pointed out his changing behavior, Ivan snapped. He said, "The one who brings in the most money calls the shots. Don't try to teach me." Mary realized then that Ivan was no longer the person he used to be. His arrogance and greed for money were leading him down a dangerous path. Mary told Ivan, "I have to admit, you've made quite a name for yourself." But she also warned him, "Listen, my husband found out that there's an investigation against Francisco. They're saying you should stay away from this game." Ivan didn't care much for this advice. He firmly told Mary, "I'm not someone who backs down. I'm going to expand my business. I'm not letting this opportunity to make money slip away." A few days later, Ivan noticed some police officers standing outside a party. He walked straight up to them and said, "Take me to your boss. I need to talk to him." The officers didn't arrest him. Instead, they took him to the police station, where he met Inspector Manuel Roy. Roy was the one investigating Francisco. Ivan told Roy, "I'm ready to help you. My boss is Francisco. All the money goes to him. I'll testify against him, but I need safety and protection in return." Ivan had made a deal with Francisco to convince the police that he would give him 30% of the profits. This made Francisco believe that Ivan was loyal, while in reality, Ivan was preparing to protect himself. Ivan also realized that he needed a solid alibi to avoid suspicion. To create one, he planned to take Francisco's daughter, Leticia, with him to Paris. In Paris, he fulfilled all of Leticia's demands, from staying in expensive hotels to shopping at high-end stores. He pretended to be in love with her, so later he could say, "I was just on vacation with my girlfriend. How would I know what happened?" Leticia had no idea that Ivan was using her for his own benefit. But a few days later, when she saw the news on TV about her father Francisco's arrest, her heart broke. "I need to go back to Madrid," Leticia said, tears streaming down her face. Ivan comforted her and arranged for their return to Paris. But inside, he was already plotting his next move. Ivan met with Mary and laid out his new plan. He said, striking a deal with Yao Ming could be very profitable. He moves dirty money into China, but his old methods often land him in trouble. We need to offer him a new way to do business. Mary sighed deeply and replied, "Switzerland isn't as easy as it used to be. Moving money in and out has become much more complicated. On top of that, clients are demanding cash. This is risky." Ivan smiled confidently and said, "I've figured it out. We just need the right timing and the right plan." "What's your solution?" Mary asked. Ivan explained that converting their money into digital currency and moving it across borders would be a better option. It's the age of cryptocurrency. Not only is it secure, but it's also hard to trace. If we handle it the right way, it could become our new business model. Mary saw potential in the idea but warned him, "Look, it sounds easier than it is. Governments have gotten stricter with digital currencies. One mistake, and everything could be over." Ivan confidently replied, "There's always risk in everything, but if it works, we'll reach a level no one has ever imagined. I need to talk to Yao Ming." Mary responded, "You'll need Louis's support to deal with Yao. Without him, none of this will be possible." Ivan nodded and said, "I'll convince Louis. He always wants a piece of the action, and my plan will definitely appeal to him." Afterward, Ivan met with Louis and presented his idea. Louis listened and said, "Your plan sounds good, but someone like Yao Ming, an old player in the game, won't be easily convinced. To make him believe in it, you'll have to show him something big." Ivan replied, "Just introduce me to him. I'll take care of the rest." Finally, Louis arranged a meeting with Yao Ming. Ivan was now moving forward with his biggest and most dangerous plan. He had made up his mind that if this worked, he would be at the top of the criminal world. But things had gotten increasingly difficult for Ivan and Mary. They had no safe place to stay, and with the pressure from the police mounting, they also realized that Francisco's revenge could be extremely dangerous for them. Ivan said, "Every move we make is backfiring. We need to change our identities somehow." Mary also knew that there was no safe way out, and even if they tried to escape, the police and Francisco's men could be on their trail. During this time, some of Yao Ming's men captured them and brought them to Yao Ming. Yao, who was on the run from the police himself, became suspicious of Ivan and Mary and intended to kill them. Ivan knew that if he angered Yao, his life would be in serious danger. To save his life, Ivan quickly devised another plan. He said to Yao, "If you kill me, you'll never see your money. I can get your money to a safe place, but I need some time and resources to do it." Yao Ming, furious, replied, "You gave information to the police about me. I'll never let you go." Ivan quickly explained to Yao that he had a way to get the money to the right place. He needed to earn Yao's full trust. To carry out his plan, Ivan assured Yao that he would deliver the money in a completely secure manner. He explained that he needed some time and the help of Yao's men to make it happen. "Your money has already been sent from Switzerland. I'll get it here, but I need a chance to prove it to you," Ivan said. Yao, who had been furious with Ivan, was now swayed by the potential of the money and reluctantly gave Ivan another chance. Now, Ivan and Mary were facing their biggest challenge: how to escape this dangerous game and save their lives. Would Ivan's plan succeed, or would he get trapped? Could they save their identities and business? These were the questions now hanging over them. Ivan's plan was risky, but he had no other option. He had promised Yao Ming that he would personally deliver the cash safely to Hong Kong. Once it arrived, Yao wouldn't suspect that Ivan could be working with the police. Ivan had taken this risk for his own survival, making the covert journey from Spain to Hong Kong. The plan seemed to be going well. Ivan made it to Hong Kong without any interruptions, but as soon as he landed, he realized that his relief was short-lived. The police had already arrested him. The police were fully prepared to capture him. In fact, they had been monitoring Ivan's movements through his tracking system. When Ivan was arrested, he realized that his entire journey, which he had undertaken to save his life, had now been in vain. The police had surrounded him and completely destroyed his plan. This arrest was a major shock for Ivan. He now understood that, despite taking such a huge risk, he had ultimately been caught. He was left with two choices. Either he could fight the charges against him and try to clear his name, or he could give up Yao Ming's name to the police and save himself. After Francisco's imprisonment, Ivan had tried to think of ways to control his situation, but now he found himself trapped in a new mess. Now, Ivan had only one option: try to strike a deal with the police and save himself. Would he tell the truth to the authorities, or would he spill everything about Yao Ming to save his own skin? This new turn of events shattered all his hopes, and now he had to decide which direction he would take next. Ivan's story comes to a painful and tragic end. He finally realizes that his obsession with money and power led him down this destructive path. His lawyer made it clear that at least 15 years in prison were certain for him, and his attempt to bribe a cop backfired, as the officer was not corrupt. He also learns that Mary had provided the police with information about him to save herself, and while it hurt him deeply, he understood that if she were in his position, she might have done the same. For Ivan, this was a bitter truth to swallow. His father's words now seemed to ring true, and he realized that in his pursuit of wealth, he had lost his humanity. Yao Ming's arrest followed, and Ivan was left with no choice but to face the consequences of his actions, sentenced to prison, a stark reminder of the cost of his greed. In the end, Ivan realizes how the greed for money and the hunger for power can degrade a person. He regrets his actions and ultimately admits in an interview that money truly goes to people's heads, and it was that same greed that corrupted and ruined him. The message of the story is clear: greed, deception, and the relentless chase for money never lead a person to their true destination. Instead, they destroy their life in the process.